You know what's hilarious?
What?
There are people who are just now noticing that our slats are gone in our room.
I know. They've been gone for a little over a month, I think.
Oh, I think more like 2.
2 months? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. I think on the Focal review, we got more comments like, where'd the slats go? Than I was expecting. I think the first video when we debuted the Sans slats was like back in like Rotel 5000. And no, it's I guess people are listening to this more than watching it.
Oh, sure. That's it.
That's what it is.
That's it.
Anyway, I'm sure of it.
Anyway. Welcome to episode 5 of Unplugged.
Yeah.
Time flies, right?
Yeah.
It's been 5 already?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we just did the whole, like, we're beta testing this on you guys episode, and now here we are 5 in.
Yeah, I mean, there are still people that not only don't realize that didn't realize our slats are gone, but also are like, where's Kristi?
She's here on Fridays,
guys.
Catch
up, buds. Catch up. If you missed Sunday's review of the Focal Aria Evo X speakers, please make sure you give that a watch. It'll let this episode make a whole lot more sense. Yeah. And I'll leave a link for you to that review down in the description. Okay, well, we have a lot to go over today.
Okay.
So we're just going to get into it.
All right.
And if you're here to find out what I think of these speakers, just sit tight. It's coming.
Okay.
We're going to get into our viewer questions and comments first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that you and I have sort of picked up on how the Focal brand and their sound is evolving. Yeah. And there are some people that are, I think, slowly catching up to this fact as well.
Okay.
So starting with C Booty. Yeah, I love that. Says, glad to see Focal seems to be moving away from the bright tipped up highs that they've been known for. I've actually avoided them in the past due to this sound reputation, but may need to consider them more in the future. And then at Carto86 says, like a more calm version of Klipsch with a detailed mid-range driver. Sounds perfect for me. And then Luke M comments, that inverted metal tweeter seems fascinating. So is there no harshness or ringing?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I never thought of them as kind of being upmarket Klipsch before. They don't strike me as Klipsch. Like Klipsch has become more neutral as well. But Klipsch still does have that bit of boost in the bass. And while this had it, this number 2 tower is a little bit more subdued in that department. So it doesn't quite feel as punchy as, say, like an 8000F Mark II, but it's nowhere near like just the facts as like a KEF is going to be, right? So it is kind of a happy medium. So now I can kind of see someone's point. The first question was, what?
Well, that the Focal seems to be moving away from the bright tipped-up highs that they've been known for, and C Booty has avoided them for this reason. Yeah,
and I think that I have noticed that, especially in the Aria line, while we did not review or spend time with like the original Aria line, I do recall around the time that we did our K2 review back in Austin, we had come off of a couple of other Focal reviews, and I think one of the reasons why the K2 kind of caught both Kristi and I off guard was that it was, even compared to their flagship and then of course CHORA, it was so much more well-behaved than either of those speakers, and it just sort of hit us differently. Now, I do recall saying, like, I can't like fault the K2, like I respect it. It was like, I think I might have had the same reaction to it as I did like those PSBs we had, where it's like, technically this is a really great speaker. It's just not my cup of tea. The new Evo X's here kind of are like the K2s, but there's just a little bit of what I also loved about their new entry-level speaker that's here. So
you mean the THEVA?
Yeah, there's just that little bit of excitement still. It's not like perfectly flat, neutral, or whatever. So yes, if you have shied away from Focal in the past, worried that they're bright, in room, or at least in our experience, I'm going to say that some of that has been dialed back. I'm not going to make a definitive statement that says it is, because maybe if you measure these near field or something like that, there will be a greater spike than what you're going to experience in room. But I think if you've stayed away, like I would, at a minimum, if there's a dealer in your area or there's a trade show in your area or something worth traveling to, definitely like write yourself a note. Put these on the list and make sure that you hear them, because if your last Focal experience was several years ago, or maybe it was a CHORA or something like that, this is nothing like that. And as for the last question, which was
the inverted metal tweeter from Luke M.
Yeah.
wants to know, is there harshness or ringing?
I
don't think there was.
No, I didn't. You know me, I was wailing on these speakers. We've had these since like January. And late January, and I was wailing on them. I was playing everything through them, and I was surprised. I was surprised that at no point was I kind of like, because that can happen, and that does happen, even if I consider a speaker to be good. There are just certain things that might occur with any loudspeaker when you're talking about decibel levels that are hitting that 100 triple digits, And it just didn't do that. And even when I measured it for, Carl, I measured it at 65, 75, 85, 95, and 105. Yeah, the frequency response in room and the distortion characteristics in room were the same at all of those volumes. So there doesn't appear, at least in my experience, there doesn't appear to be a great deal of compression, especially up top, which is kind of awesome.
Moving on.
Okay.
We know price is always a sticking point.
Yes.
But something I know we've pointed out more than once is now something I'm seeing being raised by some of our viewers.
Okay.
And that's the growing, let's call it parity in Focal's product line. For example, at Tool 8337 says, I don't understand where this comes in compared to the VESTIA. The THEVA is the replacement for the CHORA lineup, and I thought the VESTIA was a replacement for the Aria. Why did they refresh the Aria and sell it simultaneously? Yeah. And Filbert, who owns the Focal KANTAs,
yes,
and this person chose the KANTAs after spending time auditioning some of the other Aria speakers, says, what's interesting is that the new Evo X's seem like the love child between the Aria and the KANTA lines. They have a similar physical design to the Arias, and they're coupled with those flax drivers, also similar to the KANTAs.
I, too, I don't remember which comment this was, but I, too, do not understand which one's...
Are you talking about Tool 8337?
Yeah,
mentioning the...
Which one's the cheapest one?
The THEVA.
THEVA, okay.
Being the replacement for the CHORA, and, and the VESTIA being the replacement for the Aria. Like, why
exactly.
did they...
Why? I don't get why VESTIA exists either. I'm with you. And I believe in our review of that line or that speaker, we said as much.
We did.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I think Focal, especially now that they've updated their website and taken some SKUs off, I think they're in an awesome position to have good, better, best, and oh my God. You know what I mean? I think you could get away with THEVA, Aria. Oh man, I'm gonna get so much hate mail. I would ditch KANTA too and just go to Sopra and then leave the Utopia line as its own thing.
So yeah, I'm kind of like either, just give me whatever's the least expensive, or I'm going to be saving for like 10 years or maybe hoping I can pick up a Color Utopia on sale or on like Facebook Marketplace or something.
On Facebook Market.
I mean, that's if I'm really desperate. I cannot stand.
If there is any pair of Utopia anything on Facebook Marketplace, I don't recommend buying it unless you know the person personally.
Oh yeah, I mean honestly,
you're going to be buying an empty box.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little under the weather today, and I was about to either cough or choke, and so Facebook Marketplace was like the only thing hitting my brain in that moment. Yeah, I wouldn't buy anything off of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite sections.
Oh.
let's talk about the comparisons that Andrew missed.
Hey, for the record, I thought there were a lot of comparisons on Sunday's video.
Oh, baby, there was.
Okay.
There were so many, but
Yeah. There were like
it's-
5 or 6.
there's never enough.
All right.
There's never enough.
What did I miss?
All right. First up, David Donahue says, thanks for comparing against the KEFs.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards those or the Q Acoustics, Q Acoustic Concepts. I'm assuming he's talking about the Concept 50s. There are other concept lines.
Yeah.
But, the Concept 50s
Yeah.
are still one of my favorite speakers.
Yeah.
For me, can I take this one?
Go for it.
The Focals, for me, are very, very different from the Q Acoustics. I think the Q Acoustics have a lot more in common with the KEFs.
Yes.
And as much as I love the look of the Focals, I still prefer the Concept 50s. They are just, to me, they're like a Goldilocks speaker. I think they would fit really nicely in a lot of rooms. For a lot of people, they thread that needle just right.
Yep.
Would you agree?
I would 100% agree.
All right. Well, this next one, we have not been asked about this speaker in a while. Prashant Sarkar. I am so sorry if I messed that up.
We do our best, man.
How would you compare them against the Polk R700s?
Oh, I knew this was coming. Is that the whole question?
Yeah.
Look, the Polk is fantastic. These two speakers are completely different. I mean, completely different. The Polk is going to be more in that KEF/Concept 50 camp, only with bass. But know that you are going to have to power those woofers the right way to make sure that bass is tight and focused rather than just sort of like present. You know what I mean? The Focals are going to seem way more agile, but they're also not going to seem as full range if you're directly comparing the two. If you have any treble sensitivity, while I go on record as saying I think the Aria inverted dome tweeter is phenomenal, it is way more extended than the Polk. So if you're like, I don't want to ever run into a problem where I could feel as if something is too bright, peep the Polk. But if you have heard Polks in the past and you're like, this speaker's asleep, man, Focal.
Well, I think the most common comparison request was for more Focal versus Focal.
Okay.
And these first two comments kind of point back to the parody we just talked about. So at Chai Bear Productions
Okay.
says, I own the Focal VESTIA 3, which utilizes the same TAM tweeter tech minus the new tuned mass damping,
Yep.
the parentheses TMD, that is used in the new Arias. I know you reviewed the VESTIA #1, so how would you compare these sound-wise? Does the Aria better everything that the VESTIA offers, or are they comparable in some aspects? And then Gary Walters says, currently I have the Focal VESTIA. They share the same tweeter. I mean, it's kind of a repetition of
Yeah,
Chai Bear.
yeah.
And have comparable styling. Would you say the Arias are worth the upgrade if you have VESTIAs?
Obviously, we don't have VESTIA speakers here in-house. I was not able to directly compare the two. However, we did do VESTIA measurements in this house, in the same spot, using the same tools and methods and all of that. So we do have comparable measurements in room. There's not what I would call a night and day difference between the at least visual frequency response in room of some of these speakers from certain frequencies on up to the treble. There is some similarity there. Now, our VESTIA review was of a bookshelf, and now we're talking about a #2 tower with the Evo X. So obviously, my thoughts, my opinions are going to be skewed a little bit by the presence of a little bit more bass, in which case, yeah, the #2s are a bit more impactful, blah, blah, blah. Do I believe the Aria Evo X's are the better speaker? I do. I don't know what the price discrepancy is between VESTIA towers, off the top of my head, VESTIA towers and say the #2. I'm assuming it's probably
I think it's probably a significant jump.
it's probably a
'Cause
jump
remember
of
the
at least $1,000, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
because remember the Vestias,
They were only $100
they were
more
only
than
like
TEVA's.
maybe $200 difference.
Yeah.
To what we had with the TEVA.
And so if you already own Vestia and you like it, I can't in good faith say that you need to spend more, because I don't know if I could justify it, but I also did not have the two directly side by side in order to compare. There's going to be some overlap, but I would also say that anyone owning KANTA at the moment going, oh, should I save some money? I think there's going to be some overlap there too. And this is why earlier in the conversation I said, I think Focal needs to, cut bait on some of these things and make it a little bit more clear, because it's starting to be gradations of sort of the same thing. And that is one of the things that I think, if Focal has a mission going into 2024 and beyond, that's where I would focus my attention. It's clear they know how to make a stylish speaker, a beautiful sounding speaker at all price points. I think they need to focus their messaging a little bit.
Look, if it were me, the Vestias get returned.
What are you basing that on?
Here's my feelings about the TEVA line versus the Vestia line. As far as I know, the price point is pretty similar.
Yeah.
And again, I just didn't think the Vestia was special. It was just kind of bland. And I really, really like the TEVA.
Yep.
So with the price difference not being a big, there's no way that can be shoot. Let me rewind. Obviously,
It can be
even
a
if
factor.
it's $200, yes, I am aware that could be the deal breaker
Sure.
between one speaker and the other. I get it, and I'm sorry for initially dismissing it. I still think that the TEVA is just the better value,
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion. If you can go up market, yeah, I think the Aria is going to be a better fit. Would I purchase the towers? I don't know. So I just think that, like, we've kind of beaten this to death at this point, but there's so much parity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with Focal, it's kind of like going to the Cheesecake Factory and looking at the menu, and there's like 20 pages,
Yeah.
and I can't make a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time making a decision when it's just like a one-page menu. You give me 20 pages, I'm like, we'll be there an hour before I can even know what appetizer to order. It's just, it can overwhelm the customer very easily. We're going to go in the way back machine. Bear Claw says, I purchased the CHORAs largely on your recommendation, and I love them. So my question as a restless audiophile is, are these as exciting as the CHORAs? Do you lose anything? Perhaps you could discuss this on your next Unplugged. And here we are.
Are they as exciting as CHORA? No. CHORA is going to come across a little brighter, a little punchier, a little bit more dynamically efficient. And so that contrast, that immediacy is going to be a little bit greater with CHORA than with the Aria Evo X line, in my opinion. Do you gain anything? It really depends.
No, he says, do you lose anything?
Do you lose anything? I don't think you lose anything. I really don't. I just think that if you're chasing a different sound but want to keep it in the family, it's going to be different. It's going to be a little bit more refined. But if you have years of experience with the CHORA, you may respond negatively to that little bit of extra refinement, to that little bit more linear response, that knockback of the treble energy. You may be like, oh man, because this happens to Kristi all the time, where you just sort of like, it's asleep, it's is it playing slower? Does this song sound slower to you? It's like, it's not slower. It's just you're hearing more of the little things that happen in between the notes, in between the lyrics. You're hearing actually a little bit more of the definition and the detail of a mix. And believe it or not, when your brain has more things to digest, more things to react to, it does respond by sort of like slowing things down. It's not technically doing that, but when you have more things to kind of, process, maybe I'll put that graphic of Galifianakis like processing cards. Like when your brain or counting cards has all of that information, your attention becomes a little bit different versus a lot of more budget-oriented speakers, or, I hate to say this, don't come for me, like home theater speakers on the cheaper side. They tend to want to wow you with, the shattering glass and the big explosion. And when you only have those two things, you can kind of whiplash from one to the other, and it's very exciting. But when it's like the damper pedal of the piano and the mallets striking, and you can hear the differences in like a fret slide and stuff like that. Like, it's not that a cheap speaker or a lesser speaker isn't giving you those things or like ignoring that part of the mix. But when those elements are able to kind of come just a little bit more forward, it can make the experience of listening to a song that you've heard for years actually completely different. And if you like that song a certain way because you've had it on one pair of speakers for 10 years, the new hotness could actually be a negative. But for some people, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that was possible. Like, and then maybe you look at everything you had up until that point and go, this is crap. So you just have to kind of keep that in mind.
I mean, I think the choras represent the more classic sound from Focal that I think people are more familiar with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw in a total wrench
Uh-oh.
here for Bear Claw. If you're considering or even contemplating the Arias as a replacement for your choras, you're clearly willing to spend a little bit more.
Okay.
I would look at MoFi's Source Point 8
Ooh.
as a potential
Interesting.
change up for you, because
Yeah.
I find that was I really liked that speaker.
You did.
For one thing, it's super unique
Yeah.
in the styling.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the choras is they're starting to look pretty dated. So if you want to change things up just visually, but you want something that sounds maybe a little bit more like your chora experience, I think the MoFi 8s would be a good place to just start your search.
I like that. Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Thank you, babe. Okay, totally opposite end of the spectrum here. Larry H. has a fun one.
Okay.
I appreciate that comparing the Focals to the KEF LS60s is somewhat of an apples to oranges comparison. You guys know we're not shy of that. But the KEFs strike me as a better option, especially after their price cut, if someone doesn't already have the associated equipment.
Yeah.
I did watch your KEF review, which is what prompted this post. And for anyone who's not familiar with the LS60s, those are powered speakers.
Yes.
And going back to Larry's comment about the price cut, just for your information, Andrew, they are now $2,000 less than when we reviewed them. So you can find them for just under $5,000 a pair, $499.
$4,999.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought they only went down $1,000. I thought they were still around $6,000. Now they're sub $5,000. Ooh, yeah. So it's going to come down to one thing and one thing alone. If you want to be an audiophile in the traditional sense, meaning you want to go on the hunt for all of the various associated equipment, you want to maybe try 2 or 3 amplifiers over the course of months or years until you find the one you love. You want to try preamps, you want to try streamers, you want to try all this stuff, right? Because it's about building a total system for you. If that's the case, the LS60s should never be on your list. Don't even look at them. Now, for everyone else who just heard what I described and said to themselves, either internally or out loud, that sounds awful, Andrew. The LS60, especially at $5,000, should be the only speaker on your list. If you can accommodate the tower, you should go with something like that over anything you watch on our channel. like even on a KEF R11 Meta, because the Meta is going to force you in an amplifier, blah, 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 blah. At $5,000, that's probably one of the finest speakers on the market right now. And I say that because it's good on its own, but if you know what you're doing and you get into that app, and maybe, just maybe, you've also watched our Room EQ Wizard videos, you will know how to tune that speaker inside the app to absolute perfection. Or better yet, you'll just tune it however you want, you know? And if you're like, hey, I want more bass, here comes more bass. Ooh, I need it to be a little brighter. Oh, here comes a little bit more brightness. And you can save it. And so you can kind of buy that speaker and then tune it, like I think up to 3 different ways. And it's kind of like owning 3 different pairs of speakers. It's really that exceptional. It is. And it will throw down and hold its own against an R11 Meta with a whole stack of crap. So yeah, I don't consider these 2 speakers comparable at all. And if you're one that doesn't want gear, hell, if it were me and I'm buying like, hey, Andrew, you've got to spend $5-6 grand. The LS60 is still on my top 5 list of like, set it and forget it and let's move on in life.
They're awesome.
They're amazing.
I love them.
And that green they have now.
Oh, I know. I can't believe they didn't have that when we reviewed
Oh,
them.
that Lotus green.
They wouldn't have gotten them back. All right, so moving on,
Okay.
we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is dialogue.
Yes.
So we're specifically going to talk about intelligibility and using the center channel from the Evo line.
Yes.
First up is Sandeep Johnny. Great name. Good review, but you missed about cinematic experience with the same speaker, especially when it comes to dialogue intelligibility while watching movies. And you're right. We totally missed that. That's my fault. I don't know where my brain was. I didn't even realize it wasn't in there. At Tom Kovarik 04 says, I'm considering the Aria Evo X number 2 for my living room home cinema, but I'm worried the center channel might be too bulky for my TV console. Do you think a phantom center channel with these 4 speakers would suffice, or should I opt for the Aria center channel?
For the record, we didn't leave the center off for cinematic purposes in this review as an accident. I address it in Sunday's upcoming review in like 48 hours because we're reviewing the Denon A1H with this speaker system, and I address it there. So you didn't screw up, babe. I purposely did not write it in.
I know, but I put it in the title.
Okay, well then that's your mistake. You owe people an apology.
And I did. I said sorry.
I left it out on purpose.
Okay, great for you.
I don't think the center is lacking. I think the center is a nice fit for these speakers. As home theater speakers, I mean, I don't think I'm going out on a limb. These things kick ass. These things are a lot of fun and really good at home theater, especially when relying on something like Dirac to just bring out the beast in them. I think I think they're really good. Phantom Center. Boy, we go into this in the Denon review. We do. I know you have some feelings about it.
I do.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you take the floor because I have a whole section in Sunday's video about Phantom Center. So why don't you tell me what you think?
Well, I guess because we don't really have anything else to go over after this set of questions.
Okay.
So I think I might as well just kind of get right into my
I'm curious.
my thoughts about these particular speakers, and hopefully it will sort of address your Phantom Center questions.
Okay.
Honestly, I went back and forth with these speakers.
Okay.
You know, some days I loved them, and some days I didn't. There were times where I felt like I was actually listening to different speakers. So just to give you some context, the first time we heard the Focals was while we were also reviewing the new Rotel 5000 amplifier.
Correct.
And Andrew set it up, and we were basically just listening to music, and I really liked it. I liked that pairing, especially for music playback. But the longer we lived with the Focals, because we do live with the products that we review, and the more situations we put them in, I started to notice things like resonance
Okay.
that I hadn't picked up I didn't pick up on that at first.
Okay.
And this is something that we will, or that Andrew is going to address in the upcoming Denon review. On the A1H, we had that paired with the focals.
Yes.
And we used Dirac's bass management
Yes.
on the Denon. And
Yes.
doing that really helped clean up a lot of that resonance. And that helps to improve, for me, the intelligibility. Like, it was like night and day. As far as doing a phantom or a not, I don't know. I mean, I think you need to make sure you tame that bass and find a way to address the resonance, especially if you're like me and you have issues with, making sure you understand every single thing that's being said in like a movie. Like, if you're looking at these for your home theater or your living room and you watch, for example, a lot of really big action movies, I think you kind of got alluded to this just a second ago. These speakers can rock your foundation.
Yeah.
Especially if you have it also paired with a subwoofer.
Yeah.
However, if you're like me and you prefer more story-based or dialogue-heavy content, the resonance may get in the way for you. I mean, I know it did for me.
Yeah.
As for what I would put into my home, I still recommend the KEF R11 Metas because I think you really get the best of both worlds. And I feel the same about the Yamaha Towers.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if that helps anybody. If it helps you, Andrew.
I mean, I know that there are two things that you consistently struggle with any speaker. So this is not aimed at focal. You're super sensitive to boosts in the bass around 100 to 60 hertz, somewhere in that window, which is where a lot of speakers tend to put a little bit of a peak in order for you to come away with the sensation of, oh man, do you feel the bass on that? A lot of speakers have a boost, and the focal is no different. I'm not going to go so far as to, there is some resonance. There is. It's not resonance in the form of like cabinet rattling. Like it's not like you're going to hear like a woofer in the trunk of a Honda Civic. So let's be real about that. It is just an injection of energy. The KEFs, not only is that cabinet, like I say in the review, I think it comes down to cabinet construction. The KEF cabinet on the R line is just braced within an inch of its life, and that's why resonances are really just kind of clamped down. But some of you will comment like, oh, I find KEF kind of dry and boring. So you kind of have to decide, like I said, in my portion of the focal review, I did say, like, I don't know what it is. I want to listen to this speaker. I like listening to it, even though I can admit it's nowhere near like technically perfect as some other speakers that I also really love. The Yamaha is the most like the Aria here in that there's an injection of bass. However, that cabinet on the Yamaha is far more stout. It may be hollow in spots that give it that boost, but it's also way, way, way more stout everywhere else. And the other reason why I think you prefer the Yamaha to this is Yamaha has that spike right at 15 kilohertz in the tweeter, that this speaker does have a bit of a rise. I mean, just a little bit. But the Yamaha has a, hey, can we hit the summit kind of a spike. And the presence of that, especially knowing that your hearing kind of tops out around that area, brings a level of inflection to everything. You know, there's that little hit of definition to everything that the focal is not going to have. It's just not going to have it. So yeah, if you are in a camp similar to what Kristi routinely kind of runs up against, yeah, this might not be the right fit for you. It might not, and the Yamaha would be a better fit. Or. I will say this though. I believe the tuning of the focal is very purposeful, And as a result, you can tune it, you can adjust it, even with tone controls, and it reacts very linearly and it reacts very predictably, which is why, much like the Martin Logan XT-F100, and kind of to a certain degree the Polk R700, I believe some of those boosts are there on purpose to appeal to some part of the market, but they're also very easy to deal with for those people who are like, oh, I just want to back it down, because when we backed it down, your experience was different. You know, your experience was different. So keep all of this in mind, but know that it can be tamed, but it's also there for your pleasure. I did not know how you felt about these. You have kept this kind of largely a secret from me, so now I know.
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep my thoughts to myself unless I have particular questions about what I'm hearing.
Or she just can't hide it.
Yeah, or I just hate this.
But sometimes you really love it. Like,
oh yeah,
you
yes.
really love
Or
it, yeah.
sometimes I react the opposite way. I'm like,
yeah.
oh
wow.
my gosh, you know. Yeah, I mean, there are very specific instances where you will always know exactly where I stand.
Yeah.
But I do attempt to keep my running thoughts to myself.
Yeah.
So we have something to talk about.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I think that covers everything. This was, hopefully this doesn't go too long.
Yeah. No, this was a fun one. I was looking forward to this one. We've had these speakers forever, so I've kind of been always itching to we got to get to it. But no, this was fun. So, all right, guys, that's it. Thank you for watching episode 5 of Unplugged. Hopefully you're enjoying this series. Leave us a comment down below. Tell us what you think. If you like it, subscribe, ring bells, do all that stuff. You know what to do.
And we'll see you Sunday.
And we're going to see you Sunday with a brand new Denon review.
Bye.
Bye.